Chapter 33. Alaric's heart swelled with emotion the second he laid eyes on his wife. Even though they had been married for many decades, their passionate love had never faded. Harvey's arm was wrapped around his shoulder as they came hobbling up the homestead driveway. Harvey was still weak from the infection that had almost killed him, but now that they were here, now that Alaric could see the figure that had kept him going for the past 9 days, he couldn't hold back any longer. He wriggled out of Harvey's grasp and ran up the drive, sweeping Carly up in his arms and embracing her tightly in a tearful reunion. Harvey, meanwhile, staggered and lurched, weak and unsteady on his legs without Alaric's support, and managed to hobble over to a tree near the driveway, against which he supported himself. "You made it," Carly sobbed, weeping tears of joy and relief as she hugged her husband tightly. You made it back." "I'm so happy to see you, Alaric," Zoe said, rushing over to join them. Though she was usually a very quiet and reserved person, her face glowed with a bright smile, and tears of joy glistened in her eyes, too. After a long and intense embrace, Carly stepped back from her husband and looked him up and down. He had clearly lost a few pounds over the past 9 days, and was as grubby and disheveled as one would expect from a man who had been living in the wilderness. Otherwise, he was healthy, it seemed, and that filled her with relief. Now that she was assured that Alaric was well, she turned her attention to the stranger leaning against the tree down the driveway, who was clearly in a lot worse shape than her husband was. "Who's that?" she asked. "A friend," Alaric answered. "I'll tell you about him in a minute, honey. Right now, though, we just need a good hot meal." "And a shower," Carly said with a laugh. "You're in luck because the solar shower bags have heated up in the early afternoon sun. You'll be able to have a hot shower. Your friend, too. It'll have to be short, as you well know. The capacity of the bags isn't much." "I don't care," Alaric said. "A hot shower, even a 2-minute one, will do wonders for us right now, as will a hot meal." "I'll get that ready for you," Carly said. "Thank you, honey," Alaric said. "But before I do that, I need to say hi to Sid and Jess and little Valerie." Carly's face fell, and a sob sat like a tight knot in her throat. She shook her head, suddenly unable to speak. Alaric frowned, and a feeling of worry began to bubble deep in his core. They're not here?" he asked. Carly shook her head. "You have spoken to Sid, right? He and Jessica knew what to do in a situation like this. They should have been here a day or 2 after the event," Alaric said, frowning deeply. Why aren't they here? Where are they?" "I wish I could tell you that, Alaric," Carly said softly, her eyes downcast. "But I don't know where they are. I spoke to Sid just once, right after the EMP struck. He said Jess was stuck in the city and he was going to try to find her before coming out here. That was the last I heard from him." "Oh, God," Alaric gasped, the color draining from his face. "Oh, my God. So they never made it. They might not make it out at all." Tears filled Carly's eyes, and this time they were not tears of joy, but tears of grief and sorrow. I don't know. I just don't know," she murmured. Alaric's jaw tightened, and he clenched his fists, not with anger, but with cool determination. "Then I'm not staying, honey," he said softly. "I'll shower and have a hot meal, and I'll rest up for a few hours, but as soon as I've got some strength back, I'm getting some weapons and some equipment together and heading to the city." "Alaric!" "I can't sit around here relaxing while my son's fate is unknown," Alaric insisted. "You know how much I've missed you, Carly, how badly I've wanted to get back here, but I can't rest now, not while my son and his family are out there." Although Alaric wasn't by any means as stubborn as his friend Spike, Carly knew that once he had made up his mind about something, he wasn't likely to change it in a hurry. She simply nodded. "I know, Alaric, I know," she murmured. But right now, at this moment, you need to eat and you need to rest. You won't be able to help Sidney if you're too weak and tired to help yourself. Go get yourself cleaned up, and I'll get a good meal ready for you. What did you say that guy's name was?" "Harvey," Alaric said. "His name's Harvey." Without another word, he turned and marched off in the direction of the outdoor showers. After a brief but refreshing shower and a hearty lunch cooked over an open fire, Alaric had a long nap. When he woke, even though he was far from fully recovered, he felt stronger and more energetic than he had in days. Although his body wanted nothing more than to stay and relax, he knew that neither his heart nor his mind would ever allow such a thing, not while Sidney and his family were still out there somewhere. He headed into the basement of his cabin, where he kept a large number of firearms and a store of ammunition, as well as a broad range of other outdoor and survival equipment. He picked out several suitable firearms, with his primary weapon being his modified AR-15, as well as a host of other items he would need for the long and perilous journey into the city. He had a large backpack, and after having eked out a difficult 9 days on starvation rations, he made sure that he packed it with plenty of supplies from their ample pantry. Just as he was putting the last of the dehydrated meals into the bag, there was a knock on the door. "Come on in," Alaric said. Carly stepped into the room. "If you're going to try to dissuade me from going, honey," Alaric began. "I'm not. I know it'd be futile," she said. "And believe me, I'm as worried about my son as you are. I'd go myself if Zoe could handle this place on her own. No, it's not that I came here to talk about." "Well, what is it then?" Alaric asked. "It's Spike," she said. "I've been talking to him a lot, and he's not doing well." Alaric sighed. "His lungs have gotten worse, huh?" "A lot worse, especially in the last few days," Carly said softly. "I wish I didn't have to tell you this, Alaric, but I know you don't like anything to be sugar-coated or to be put aside to spare your feelings. I know how much you value the truth, however painful that truth may be. And the truth is, honey, I don't think your best friend is going to be around much longer. I'm sorry, Alaric. I'm so sorry to be the bearer of this news, but I thought you should know." A wave of emotion surged through Alaric. He had been preparing himself for a long time now, since long before the EMP. But he hadn't expected it to come quite so soon. And having it hit him now, at that moment, that was the worst possible timing for it. "I'd better have a word with him before I set off then," Alaric murmured. He put the backpack down and hugged his wife tightly. "Thank you for telling me the truth, as painful as it is," he whispered to her. "I love you, Carly, with all my heart and soul. I truly love you." "There's something else," Carly said as they broke off their hug. "What?" "Spike was very insistent that you go to his place," she said. "Even if he doesn't make it, he says there's something there that you have to get. He didn't say what it was, but he said that it's a life or death matter, something that could be essential for our survival." Alaric sighed. "All right. I don't know what he might be talking about, but I know if Spike says something like that, he's not exaggerating. Damn it. If only Sid and his family were here. I fear by the time I finally find them, Spike he'll be..." Carly hugged him again. "I know, honey, I know," she said hoarsely, her voice cracking with emotion, tears rolling down her cheeks. Suddenly, the door burst open and Zoe came charging in, breathless, her eyes wide with shock. Alaric immediately snatched up his AR-15. "What's wrong, Zoe?" he demanded. "What's going on? Point me to the danger and I'll handle it." Zoe, breathless, shook her head, trying to find the power of speech, which seemed to be eluding her at that critical moment. Carly put her arms around her sister, doing her best to soothe and calm her. "Zoe, what's wrong?" she asked gently, trying to disguise the fear and anxiety in her voice. What's the problem? What's happened? Sidney, Zoe finally managed to blurt out excitedly. Sidney and his family, they're here. They're alive and well, they're here. Chapter 34. Sidney, Jessica, and Valerie lay sprawled on the grass, staring up at the deep blue sky. The first stars were coming out, and the shrill chorus of insects from the forest that surrounded the homestead was loud yet comforting. Their bellies were full of hearty, nutritious food for the first time in many days, and they were all clean and showered, in fresh clothes, with their wounds dressed, also for the first time in days. After what felt like an eternity of hell, traveling in a state of constant fear, hunger, and exhaustion, and only moving at night to avoid the attention of both the predatory mobs who were fleeing from the burning city, as well as the guns of the mysterious soldiers in black, it felt beyond surreal to be here on the homestead, where they were safe, where everything was quiet and peaceful, where life mostly continued as it had before the devastation wreaked by the EMP. Is this a dream, Daddy? Valerie asked, as they watched the big yellow moon rise slowly into the clear, darkening sky. It feels like a dream. Sidney smiled and reached over to squeeze his daughter's hand. A good dream, sweetie, I hope, he asked. The best dream, she responded, flashing a white blaze of teeth and a broad grin in the half-light of dusk. I'm happy now. I was so scared before. Really scared. I had really bad dreams every night. Well, every day, 'cause we were like bats. We slept in the day and walked around at night. I know, sweetie, I know, Sidney said, giving her hand another squeeze. It was a difficult time for all of us, but I promised you we'd get here in one piece, didn't I? And look, here we are, safe and sound, just like I promised. Isn't that right? I know, Daddy, I know, Valerie said. You did promise. Thank you, Sid, Jessica said, laying her head on Sidney's chest. Thank you for coming back for me. Thank you for getting us here. There were so many times when things could have turned out for the worst, but you got us through them. I've never been prouder to call you my husband than I am right now. Many men, most men, would have fallen apart in the face of the challenges we faced, but not you. You stepped up and faced every one of those challenges, and you overcame each one of them. Without you, I don't think we'd have made it. Sidney gently stroked her hair. I can't take all the credit for it, Jess. Without you, I don't think I would have made it. Don't downplay everything you did to get us here. You guys both did it, okay? Valerie said with mock exasperation. Everyone laughed, and Sidney playfully ruffled his daughter's hair. And you did your bit, too, my little trooper, he said. You were very, very brave, and we're both very proud of you. I didn't feel very brave, Valerie murmured. And I don't feel very brave now. What if the bad men come here? Can they get us here? Shh, Sidney said. Don't worry about that, sweetie. Don't worry about the bad men. They can't hurt you now. They can't ever hurt you again, not with your grandpa and me looking after you. And what about Uncle Harvey? Valerie asked. Can he protect me from the bad men too? I know I only just met him, but he seems really nice. I like him. Is he going to stay here with us? While Sidney, Jessica, and Valerie continued to chat while the twilight settled in, Alaric and Carly were having their own discussion on the porch, on the other side of the main cabin. I have to go tonight, Carly, Alaric said resolutely. Spike hasn't answered our in-reach calls once all day. I have a bad feeling about it. I know Alaric, and I'm worried about him too, Carly said. But you need to rest. When did you last sleep through the night on a bed? You've lost a lot of weight, you're exhausted, and you're running on empty. You can't help him if you're not healthy and strong yourself. You only got here a few hours ago, and now you're leaving again, without even spending one night here. Spike is my brother, Alaric said stubbornly. He'd do the exact same for me. What if me staying here and resting tonight is the difference between him living and dying? I could never forgive myself if that happened. Never. I want to stay here, my love, believe me, but I can't do that. Not in my brother's hour of need. I'm sorry, but nothing you can say will change my mind. I have to go. Although Spike's nickname was Mule, Carly often thought it was an apt moniker for her husband, too. Once Alaric had made his mind up about something, trying to get him to change it was about as easy as wringing blood from a stone. She realized now that there was nothing she could do or say to dissuade him from setting off on the multi-day journey through the woods to Spike's remote and isolated homestead. With a sad sigh, she nodded and leaned across to hug him tightly. "Be careful, Alaric Manson," she said. "You get there in one piece and you come back here in one piece, too, you hear?" "You know I'll be okay," Alaric said. "Tired as hell, sure, but okay. And look after Harvey while I'm gone. He may be a city boy, but he's one of the good ones. Show him how things work around here. I think even Lil Valerie knows more about homesteading life than he does." "Judging from the condition he's in," she said, "I don't think he's going to be getting out of bed for the next few days." Alaric chuckled. "I guess not. All right, well, it's getting dark now, so let's get the others together for dinner. As soon as we're done eating, I'm gonna head out." "You sure about that? There's nothing I can say to change your mind." Alaric grinned. "You've known me almost 50 years, Carly. What do you think?" They both chuckled, and then they hugged again and got up out of their chairs, each heading off to separate areas of the homestead to get the others together for dinner. An hour later, as they were dining on the porch, all chatting and laughing, two pairs of eyes observed the scene of domestic bliss from the deep shadows of the woods on the edge of the property. The men could not hear what the family was saying, but they could see them clearly enough through their binoculars. "I say we rush 'em now," said the first man, a massively built, heavily scarred brawler dressed in the baggy clothes of an inner-city thug. "This is the place you promised us, man, and we can take it in 5 minutes if we go in right now with our guns blazing." "No, not yet," Vernon said. "That old man, he'll give us trouble. Take out a lot of our men before he goes down. I can tell. Trust me, I know people." "So fucking what, man? That old grandpa caps one or two of my boys and I blow his fucking head wide open and fuck his daughter in front of the rest of the family, while the rest of y'all slowly slit their throats. Then we eat their fucking food and sleep under a fucking roof tonight instead of the fucking woods, all cold and uncomfortable and getting bit by bugs and shit. Trust me, he'll do a lot more than take out one or two of your men," Vernon warned. "He's dangerous, despite what you may think. You haven't been observing things as closely as I have, and that's why I say we wait. Just one more day, and then a walkover victory is guaranteed." "Oh yeah? And what the fuck makes you so sure about that?" "The old man is going somewhere. He's got a big backpack ready. He's heading off on some multi-day hike. If you'd been paying attention instead of salivating over the woman, you'd have noticed that. We wait until he's gone. Wait until he's long gone. Tomorrow night'll be perfect. And then their defenses are weak. Their key player is gone. Then we walk in. Then you take the woman. And you boys can do what you want with the rest of them while I sit and sip on their wine. Ah, what I wouldn't do for a good glass of wine right now. I don't know, man. I think we should hit 'em right now. The whole thing could be over in 5 minutes." "Has my advice failed you yet?" Vernon asked. "Well, no, I guess it hasn't," the thug admitted. "And you agree that in many situations we've encountered, if you hadn't followed my advice, many more of your men, probably most of them, including yourself, would have been killed, yes?" "Yeah, your advice did save our asses once or twice." "Then it's settled," Vernon said, with a dark, malicious smile. "Tomorrow night, we take this place. Then the promised land is ours." Chapter 35. "Are you sure you don't want to come to bed, Sidney?" Jessica asked. Valerie's finally asleep, and she's looking content. And for us, this is the first night we've been able to sleep in a bed in 10 days. Sidney shook his head, gripping his AR-15, one of a number of AR-15 rifles his father had stockpiled here, tightly in his hands. Believe me, honey, he said. There's nothing I'd like more right now than to climb into bed with you. But as safe as everything feels here, it's not safe. Not like it was before the EMP, at least. Someone has to keep watch. It's just how things are going to have to be from now on. We can't let our guard down. Not now. Not after everything we went through to get to this place. And I can't explain why, but I almost felt like a pair of eyes was watching us earlier, at dinner from the woods. A pair of unfriendly eyes. I know it sounds crazy, but I just can't shake the feeling. All right, I understand, Jessica said, sighing sadly. I just wish... I know, Sidney said. And believe me, I would have liked to have spent our first night here together as much as you. But we have to put duty and safety first. One slip-up, one mistake, one act of carelessness with security could cost us everything. Our only shelter, our only food supply, our lives. We can't take that chance. I know. Besides, Zoe is going to take over my watch at 3 a.m, so I'll join you in bed then. After this whole speech, you're okay with putting your life in the hands of a woman who's pushing 70? Jessica asked. Sidney chuckled. Have you ever seen her shoot, Jess? She may look like a sweet little old lady who enjoys nothing but knitting and baking pies, but she was a champion sharpshooter back in her day. With her glasses on, she can still hit the bullseye a lot more often from a lot further out than I can. She's as good a shot as my dad, maybe even better. You should probably trust her more than you trust me. Anyway, enough of this. I gotta go start patrolling the boundaries. Have a good night, honey. I'll join you in a few hours. While Sidney was starting his patrol, Alaric had already traveled a few miles through the dark woods. Since he had set off, a vague feeling of unease had been dogging him. He felt as if something was wrong, and not with Spike. Although his instincts nonetheless told him that his old friend was in great danger. The new instinct, as vague as it was, though, told him that another danger was close by. He couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was, but it was a feeling he couldn't shake. It's the lack of sleep, he muttered to himself, as he continued to march through the dark forest. The lack of sleep, the lack of food, the general exhaustion, damned old age getting to me and everything else. Starting to imagine things. Starting to go a little crazy. Maybe Carly was right. Maybe I should have stayed in and rested tonight. Lord knows I need it. Alaric shook his head and gritted his teeth with determination, doing his best to force the doubt out of his mind. He had to remain resolute. His best friend, the man who had been like a brother to him for many decades, needed him now more than ever. It was a hike of many days to get to Spike's place. And as he had said to his wife, one day's delay could mean the difference between life and death for his old friend. Spike had never let him down, and Alaric intended to repay him in kind. He fought through the weariness and pushed on into the night. The night passed without incident on the homestead, and everyone slept in. After the traumatizing, hellish time they had all had since the beginning of the EMP attack, they all needed a rest. Harvey slept longer than anyone. He had dragged himself into bed shortly after eating lunch the previous afternoon, and had stayed there for over 16 hours. When he got up after that long and much-needed sleep, he found himself feeling better than he had since being attacked by the grizzly. When he opened his eyes, though, he was caught in the grip of a momentary terror of confusion. He had no idea where he was or how he'd gotten here. Finally, though, he began to remember what had happened. Yawning, he hauled himself out of bed. Everything felt completely surreal. He could hardly believe he had survived a trek through the wilderness on starvation rations while fighting off a ferocious infection after a bite from a grizzly bear. His shoulder still hurt, but it was no longer the burning, boiling pain of a severe infection. The puncture wounds were no longer swollen and red and oozing pus. They had now scabbed over, and his skin tone was returning to its usual state. The pain now was in his muscles and tendons. His left arm hung limp and useless from his shoulder, and he was now only able to use his right hand and arm. A pitcher of water had been left next to his bed, and he greedily chugged the cool liquid, slaking his thirst. Then he took a look around him, taking in the side of the room. It was small, which featured, like the rest of the cabin, outer stone walls and wooden inner walls and a wooden floor. There was little in the room but a bed, a small dresser, and a shelf with a couple of books. While Harvey was perusing the collection of books, there was a knock on the door. "I'm up, you can come in," he said. Carly came in bearing a breakfast platter with homemade bread, beans from their cellar, and fresh eggs from the chicken coop. "That smells incredible, thank you," Harvey said. "How are you feeling?" Carly asked, as she set the platter on the dresser. "Not perfect, but a lot better than I was," Harvey answered. "I think it's going to be a long time before my left arm works again, if it ever does regain full function. Although I'm still feeling pretty weak, I've beaten the infection." "I'm glad to hear that," Carly said, smiling. "I hope you do eventually regain full use of that arm of yours." She turned around to exit the room. "Wait," Harvey said. "Listen, I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me, seriously. Your husband risked his life to save mine. I was ready to die 9 days ago. I had accepted my fate, but he refused to give up on me. The only reason I'm still breathing is him, and I don't think I can ever repay him for what he did for me." Carly smiled. "That's just how he is, Harvey. You don't need to repay him. He wouldn't want you to anyway. Just live a good life, be a good person, be grateful to simply be alive. That's all the thanks Alaric would want, trust me." "I know, I've learned that about him. But I also want to thank you for taking me in these difficult times. I'm an extra mouth to feed, an extra drain on your precious resources, and now, with only one good arm, I don't think I'm going to be too helpful around here." "Don't worry about that," Carly said. "I'll find some use for you, trust me," she added with a laugh. "Although a pair of hands is needed for most tasks around here, one good hand is better than 0 hands. Speaking of one-handed tasks, do you know how to shoot a pistol?" Harvey shook his head. "I've never owned a gun, and, I was one of those extremely vocal pacifist anti-gun folks that your husband probably hated," he said sheepishly. "I guess you could say that when Alaric's gun literally saved my life, my views on that changed a little." "That's the mark of a decent person," Carly said. "You're willing and able to change your mind and your views when presented with evidence that contradicts them. Anyway, forget about that. You need to learn to use a firearm. You won't be able to fire a rifle or a shotgun with one hand, but we've got a 9mm Glock that you'll be able to use without any problems. I know things feel safe here now, but in these times you never know. When you've had your breakfast, go find my sister. She may not look it, but she was an expert markswoman when she was younger, and she's still an extremely fine shot. She'll teach you all about handling a weapon." "Thank you, Carly. I'll do that. I'm determined to make myself useful around here, so I'm not just a drain on your resources." Carly chuckled sympathetically. "Even if you were bedridden and paralyzed, we'd never think of you as a burden. Taking care of others is just what decent folk do. There's no need to feel guilty about anything." Harvey ate his breakfast and then spent the rest of the morning in the woods, learning to shoot with Zoe. Although he was no marksman, he became a fairly competent shot within a couple of hours' practice. After dinner that evening, Harvey volunteered to take the first watch shift until midnight. Sidney showed him the best path to follow to patrol the perimeter, gave him some tips about patrolling, and then they left him to it. In the forest, the darkness was alive with nocturnal life. Insects buzzed and hummed and trilled, and bats and nocturnal birds swooped through the air. In the very far distance, a faint echo of a wolf howl could be heard. Harvey sighed. He still couldn't believe that civilization as he knew it had fallen, had collapsed into complete anarchy and chaos. He had a hard time picturing what cities and towns were looking like at this moment. But the horrifying stories Sidney and Jessica had told him about their harrowing escape from the city gave him a clear enough idea of just how bad things were. As Harvey was thinking about that, he caught a glimpse of what he thought was a light in the inky darkness of the woods. His pulse began to race, and cold fear trickled through his veins. There couldn't be someone out there, could there? He squinted and peered intently at the light, and then exhaled a long sigh of relief. It was a firefly. Now, an entirely different emotion displaced his fear: curiosity. Prior to focusing on grizzly bears and other mammals, Harvey had dabbled in entomology, with a focus on fireflies. He paused by the boundary fence and continued to stare into the darkness at the distant, tiny light moving in figure-of-8 swirls through the night forest. He had been told not to go into the woods and to stay on the homestead side of the boundary, but he simply couldn't resist going to take a look at the firefly. If there were one, there would surely be more, and he hadn't observed those fascinating little insects in the wild for quite some time. And besides, there didn't seem to be even a hint of danger out here. Harvey figured it would be okay to bend the rules a little. He climbed over the low boundary fence with ease and walked through the forest. The fireflies, he soon started seeing more of them, were around 100 yards into the woods and were drifting lazily around on top of a ridge. Harvey smiled as he got closer to them. Fireflies always put his soul at ease. When he got to the top of the ridge and was in the midst of the lazy swirling fireflies, though, an entirely different set of emotions hit him, very hard and very suddenly. Fear and panic. From on top of the ridge, he was able to see down into the valley beyond, a valley which was invisible from the homestead boundary. And in that valley, he saw lights. Many lights that were not fireflies. They were men. Armed men. Chapter 36.
"We've got trouble. Everyone wake up. We've got trouble. Get up. Get up. Wake up."
Harvey yelled in a panicked voice, bashing on everyone's door as he ran through the main hallway of the cabin.
"Harvey, what's gotten into you, man?"
Sidney groaned as he staggered out of his room in his boxer shorts, rubbing his sleepy eyes.
"Have you lost your freaking mind?"
"What's the problem, Harvey?" Carly asked, shuffling out of her room in her nightgown, carrying a camping lantern.
There are men, guns, lots of them, men with guns. Trouble, trouble,"
Harvey gasped, his eyes bulging white in the darkness. Jessica had also gotten up, and she ran to the kitchen and grabbed a bottle of whiskey. She offered it to Harvey, who slugged on it. The liquor helped him to calm his nerves a little, and he was able to steady his shaking hands and start breathing more evenly.
I went into the woods," he said. I know I wasn't supposed to, but I saw some fireflies. I went up onto the ridge, and down below, in the valley, there were fires, small campfires, but I saw men with guns, assault rifles. They're going to attack us, I just know it. They're here to attack us."
"Oh, shit," Sidney murmured, the color draining from his face. "Did they see you?"
No, they didn't," Harvey said. I got out of there as quickly and as quietly as I could."
"You shouldn't have broken the rules, Harvey," Carly said. "But I'm glad you did. You just saved all of our lives."
We'd better start packing, Harvey stammered. If we move now, we can get out of here before...
No, Harvey, Carly said gently. We're not going anywhere. We're going to defend ourselves and protect this place. The fact that they're not able to take us by surprise, although they think they are, means we can set up an ambush for them.
Are you crazy?
Harvey stammered.
There are dozens of them, and a handful of us. We're all gonna die. We don't stand a chance.
My husband prepared plans for exactly this sort of situation, Carly said calmly. I know it's scary, and I know we're outnumbered, but if we follow Alaric's plan, even though he's not here to lead us, we have a good chance of beating these guys.
I agree, Sidney said. We didn't go through hell to get here only to be driven off our land. This homestead is the only chance we have of surviving long term in this frightening new world we found ourselves in. If my father has plans to defend this place, I'm sure they're sound. We have to follow them, and we have to fight.
I'm just as scared and worried as you are, Harvey, Jessica said. But I'm going to stay and fight, not for myself, but for my family, for my daughter. Sid is right. The homestead is our only chance for surviving the next few years and decades into this crazy new world. And I'm not going to run away with my tail between my legs and hand it over to a bunch of criminals. Harvey nodded slowly, processing everything that had just been said.
All right, he finally said. All right, as crazy as it is, with me, a half-cripple who can only use one arm, 2 old ladies and a young family fighting against 2 or 3 dozen men with guns, I'll do it. I'll stay and fight. If you all are brave and determined enough to do this, I'm with you. As useless as I feel, I'll be in the battle.
You aren't useless, Harvey, Carly said, putting her hand on his shoulder. Far from it. You're far braver and more capable than you know. And with numbers as small as ours, every man and woman counts immensely. Now, enough talk. I'm going to go wake up Zoe. Sid, you and Jessica get the guns and ammo together. Harvey, you fill up water bottles. We're going to need to stay hydrated. In 10 minutes, we all meet on the porch. And there I'll explain my husband's plan to you. Then we're going to put it into action. And give these scumbags hell if they set even a single toe on our precious homestead. Let's do this. 2 hours later, Vernon and his gang decided the time was right to attack. The gang, a motley crew, made up of survivors of the gang battles Vernon had stoked in the burning city, was heavily armed, carrying assault rifles and a few hand grenades, all of which had been taken from dead troops, both National Guardsmen and the mysterious troops in black in the city.
All right, men, Vernon said, as they assembled in the woods on the boundary of the homestead under cover of darkness. Now, I know you're all very excited about this, at the prospect of having hot food to eat, warm beds to sleep in, and that hot brunette MILF to fuck, one of the men growled, chuckling evilly. The other men all laughed too. Yes, that too, Vernon said, smiling. But jokes aside, we have to be careful here. We've seen people patrolling the homestead every night since we got here. That alone tells me that they're at least expecting trouble, even if they're not fully prepared for the kind of trouble we're going to bring them. It's a cripple, some old grannies and a lame-ass family from the suburbs, one of the thugs muttered derisively. What the fuck you think they're gonna do to us, homie? Those pussy-ass motherfuckers will shit their pants and beg for mercy before we even fire the first shot. I ain't scared of no old people, bitch. I'm just saying that we shouldn't underestimate anyone, Vernon cautioned. Surely you haven't forgotten the fight that old farmer and his wife put up 5 days ago. The 3 friends of yours they shot paid dearly for that mistake. Yeah, and then I capped the fucking farmer and the fat-ass wife, the thug retorted. This ain't gonna be no different. Vernon shrugged. Whatever you say, friend. I'm sure most people here realize that my advice has been very sound so far. You can take it or leave it, of course. I would strongly suggest that you take it, though. Yeah, listen to Vernon, you stupid motherfucker. Another thug snapped at his friend. He knows what's up.
Thank you, Tyrone, Vernon said. All right, so this is my plan. Half an hour later, almost 20 of the gangsters were creeping across the lawn. They had completely surrounded the main cabin, which, like Zoe's smaller cabin, was shrouded in darkness. It seemed that everyone was sleeping. Not a single lamp or candle could be seen burning in either of the cabins. Vernon was watching from the trees, along with some men he was holding in reserve. He wasn't brave or foolish enough to be out in front with the first wave of attackers. Although there was no sign that there was any sort of ambush, he wasn't about to rule out that possibility. He suspected, though, that his own surprise attack would go smoothly and would be rapidly and brutally successful. The sleeping occupants of the homestead might get off 1 or 2 lucky shots. Maybe 1 or 2 of his men would lose their lives. But then the elderly people and the suburbanites would quickly be overwhelmed by the force of numbers and viciousness of his heavily armed urban fighters, and then it would all be over for them. Then Vernon would own this place, and he would operate as a warlord from this base, establishing control and power over increasingly large swaths of territory, all while ensuring that he and his men had a steady supply of food, water, and shelter. He had planned it all out quite clearly in his mind. The first of his men, of the 20-strong circle, got to within around 30 yards of the cabin when he noticed something unusual. Up to that point, his eyes had been on the cabin, specifically the windows from which he expected a gun barrel to pop out from, which a barrage of shots he thought might suddenly explode. However, at that point, it was not the windows that had his attention. It was the ground. The lawn was lumpy and uneven, and when he bent down to examine it in the moonlight, he noticed that it had been freshly dug up. And when he looked even closer, he saw that there was a wire leading into the freshly dug ground. "What the fuck?" he murmured, kneeling down to examine the wire more closely. From the woods, Vernon saw the man. He also noticed other men stopping to look at the ground. A bad feeling started to bubble and churn within him, as if he had just realized that he had eaten a meal laced with poison. At that moment, the defenders struck, but not with gunfire from the cabin. Instead, there was a tremendous explosion, a boom that sounded as if the world itself was disintegrating. Buried in shallow holes all around the lawn were sticks of dynamite, and Carly had just detonated all of them at once. A ring of titanic explosions went off all around the cabin. The force of these blasts blew out every window in the cabin and bowled Vernon and his men off their feet. As for those standing on the lawn around the main cabin, there was little left of them but shredded flesh and shattered bones. Many of them were standing directly above the dynamite and were almost entirely vaporized by the immense power of the explosions. Of the 20 who had formed the advance party, only 3 remained, and all 3 were severely wounded, with limbs blown off, lying on the ground, screaming and gushing blood. For a few moments, Vernon simply lay on the ground, groaning, stunned and in shock. But before he could even begin to think of what to do next, the shooting started. And it wasn't his men doing it. Bursts of automatic fire seemed to come from everywhere at once, spraying the section of the woods where he and his men were hiding. Next to him, a gangster's body jerked grotesquely as AR-15 rounds ripped through it, and the man's hot blood sprayed all over Vernon's face.
"Fuck this!"
another thug yelled.
"I'm getting out of here. I ain't sticking around to get capped,"
another screamed, as a man was cut down by a well-placed rifle shot right next to him. In the space of only 2 minutes, the gangster's rash bravado and aggressive confidence had turned to cowardice. and they were fleeing in a blind panic through the woods, with barely a handful of shots fired in retaliation. Inside the cabin, in the cellar, Jessica eased her arms off Valerie, who she had been holding tightly.
"Has the shooting stopped, Mommy?"
Valerie asked, her eyes wide, her hands pressed against her ears.
"I don't like shooting."
"It stopped, sweetie," Jessica said, "and I don't like it either."
"All clear, I think,"
Harvey yelled from the top of the cellar stairs. Harvey, Jessica, and Valerie had been the only ones in the main cabin. Sidney, Zoe, and Carly had all been in sniping positions in the woods, which Alaric had prepared years ago. The snipers called out to each other by using owl hoots, which was the signal that all was clear in their respective areas. The last of the attackers had fled, and the battle had been won. However, the defenders knew the attackers would be back. They had killed less than a third of them, and the gangsters were clearly hungry. Their desperate need for food and shelter would, despite the defeat they had just suffered, motivate them to mount another assault. And the next time they attacked, it would be a lot harder to take them by surprise, or use any of the tactics they had just utilized.
"Search the bodies, people,"
Sidney ordered, as they gathered on the main cabin lawn, which had a ring of huge swimming pool-sized craters in it from the dynamite explosions.
"Make sure each of these bastards really is dead, and then grab whatever gun and ammo they had on them. Don't leave anything behind for them to use against us."
The defenders lit up their lamps and began to search the bodies on the lawn and in the woods, taking whatever firearms, ammunition, and other weapons they found on the dead gangsters. Once this had been done, and all the enemy weapons and ammunition had been safely stockpiled in the cellar, the defenders gathered on the porch of the main cabin.
"My pulse is still racing at 1,000 beats per minute," Carly said. "I've been shooting my whole life, and I've done plenty of hunting, but I never thought I'd be able to shoot a man. But right now, I just shot a whole bunch of them. My hands are still shaking." "I'd also wondered if I'd be able to cross that line," Zoe said. "But as it turns out, when someone comes onto your property with the express intent of killing you and everyone you love, and taking everything you've worked your whole life for, it becomes a lot easier to line up a human being in your sights and pull the trigger."
"Do you think it's over now?" Jessica asked. Carly shook her head grimly.
"Oh, no, not at all, I'm afraid. We're the only homestead for miles, the only reliable source of food. If you look at the bodies of the men we just shot, they're already showing signs of starvation. We might have scared them off this round, but that hunger in their bellies is a powerful motivator, more powerful than fear. They want what we've got, and are faced with death by starvation or possible death by a bullet, but with a chance to live and prosper. As much as these people are cowards at heart, I know they're going to be back, and they won't be defeated as quickly or as easily next time. We don't have any more dynamite, so we can't pull that stunt again. Our next battle is going to be a lot harder to win, I can tell you that for sure."
"And when do you think they're going to be back?" Harvey asked nervously. He hadn't had to fire a single shot, and he prayed that it would stay this way.
"Soon," Carly said grimly. "A lot sooner than we'd like, I think."
Chapter 37. Alaric's knees hurt. So did his feet, his ankles, his legs, his hips, and his back. He couldn't remember when he had last felt so burnt out, so exhausted. Even on the grueling trip through the wilderness, nursing Harvey back to health, while trying to hike dozens of miles a day on starvation rations hadn't felt as hard as this last hike. Maybe Carly had been right, Alaric thought. Maybe he should have had a long night's sleep before setting out for Spike's place. In fact, he knew she was right. Alaric had never felt his age more than he had now, even though his wife had been right. Had he followed her advice and waited a night, he wouldn't have gotten to Spike in time. He had stumbled into Spike's cabin, feeling as if he were on the verge of death himself. Late in the evening, after almost 48 hours of marathon hiking, with barely any rest or sustenance. And he had found his old friend, his brother in arms, sprawled out on the kitchen floor, barely breathing. It looked as if Spike had been there for at least 24 hours, perhaps longer.
Water,
Spike had croaked, barely able to utter this wheezy gasp, when Alaric had staggered on leaden legs and aching feet into the cabin. Alaric, shocked at the state he found Spike in, had immediately gotten down on his hands and knees and pressed his water bottle against his friend's lips. When Spike had drunk his fill, Alaric had picked him up and carried him over to the sofa in the living room. He had noticed right away that the body of this man, who had always been muscular and strong, had become emaciated and skeletal. It felt to Alaric that Spike now weighed about as much as an adolescent boy. It was a heartbreaking sight to behold, and he couldn't keep his tears at bay. He was grateful, though, that he arrived when he had. Had he taken Carly's advice and gotten a long night's sleep before setting off, he was sure that when he arrived here, he would have discovered Spike's corpse rather than his barely living body. There was plenty of canned food and fresh water, so as soon as Alaric had gotten Spike comfortable, he set about preparing a hearty and nutritious meal, as much for himself as for his ailing friend. After eating, Spike regained a little strength, enough to talk at least. It was plain to see, though, that he was dying. But even now, with his body clearly ravaged by cancer, he begged Alaric to get him his pack of cigarettes and a lighter. In preparation for a disaster like the EMP attack, part of Spike's preparations had been to hoard and store cigarettes, far more than he could ever smoke in the rest of his days. As much as Alaric disapproved, he did not refuse his friend's request. Smoking couldn't hurt him any more than it already had, and if it brought him pleasure in his last few days, so be it. While Spike smoked, he and Alaric sat and chatted, catching up on the events of the last few weeks. Finally, the conversation turned to the message Spike had left with Carly. "What exactly is it that you have for me, my friend?" Alaric asked. "This supposed game changer that you said I needed to come here so urgently for. I mean, don't get me wrong. The main reason I came here was to see you because I felt like you might be in trouble. But I am more than a little curious about this." Spike beamed a broad grin at Alaric. "You aren't going to believe it, old buddy. Your eyes are going to pop right out of your damn sockets when you see what I've got here," he wheezed, his hoarse voice barely clearing a whisper. "I can't walk, so you're going to have to carry me out to it. Don't worry, it ain't that far away. We'll go first thing in the morning, though. I think we could both use a long night of sleep after the times we've had in the past few days." The next morning, Alaric was still feeling drained and weak, but his strength and energy levels had at least been partially restored. He cooked up a nutritious breakfast for himself and Spike, and when they had eaten, he carried Spike out to one of the fields on his homestead. When they got to the field, though, Alaric quickly realized that this was no ordinary field for growing crops. Instead, a large portion of it was fake plastic grass. "Set me down here," Spike croaked, pointing at a spot on the ground. "Then go pull all this fake grass crap away. There are ropes just under it." Alaric did as his friend instructed, and removing the fake grass revealed that there was a very large structure built under the field. "What the hell is this, Spike?" he asked. Spike chuckled, grinning mischievously. Oh, you'll soon see. And when you see what I've got down there underground, you're going to shit your pants. Go on, head down those stairs there. There's a crank you can start turning to open this thing up. It'll take a lot of elbow grease, but you'll eventually be able to get it open." Alaric headed down the concrete stairs, and at the bottom, he found a large hand crank. It required a great deal of strength and energy to turn, but he persisted, and the heavy roll-up steel roof of the underground chamber, which had been hidden under the fake grass, began to open up. "Keep turning the crank. Keep turning it," Spike wheezed from up on the ground. Alaric's arms and shoulders were burning from the effort of turning the crank, but he persisted. After around half an hour of intense effort, he finally got the entire roof rolled up. Then, when he walked back up the stairs and looked down into the large space that had just been revealed, his jaw almost dropped when he saw what was in it. Does it work?" he managed to gasp. "Is it usable?" "What do you think, dummy?" Spike wheezed with a chuckle. "I made sure that whole space was like a big Faraday cage. Of course it works. And now, since I don't have much longer left in this world, it's yours." Back at the homestead, the defenders, who had been up for almost 48 hours straight after the attack, were feeling utterly exhausted. They had only managed to catch short stretches of sleep, with only one person sleeping at a time, while the others kept watch. This pattern of minimal rest was now taking its toll, though, and everyone was feeling dead on their feet. "Those bastards didn't come back last night," Harvey groaned. "I don't think they'll come during the day. We should all try to catch up on sleep, with just one person keeping watch during the day. I don't think they'll attack in daylight." "We can't let our guard down," Carly said. "I know we're all exhausted. Believe me, I feel it myself. But that's what they're waiting for. If we all go in and sleep, they'll rush in." "We can't keep this up indefinitely," Jessica said. "Eventually, we'll all pass out from exhaustion. I think we should do what Harvey says, and all get some rest with just one person keeping watch. We're all going to have to stay up at night anyway, so we may as well get some rest during the day to replenish our energy levels." "I'm sorry to disagree with you, sister," Zoe said, "but they're right. I can barely keep my eyes open now. I can't remember ever feeling this tired in my life. If we drain ourselves to the point of complete exhaustion, we won't be able to fight very effectively when they do come back. And like Harvey said, the risk of a daytime attack is low, so—" "Up there! One of them is coming!" Sidney yelled, as he spotted a man climbing over the boundary fence a mile away. "Son of a bitch," Zoe growled, whipping her hunting rifle up to her shoulder and peering through the scope. And she slipped her forefinger onto the trigger. "I'll handle him, don't worry." Through the scope, though, she saw that the man was holding a white t-shirt, and he was waving it above his head. She eased her finger off the trigger. "He's got a white flag," she said to the others. "What should I do? Drop him or let him approach?" "Is he armed?" Sidney asked. Zoe gave the man a good looking over through the rifle scope. "I can't see any firearms or any other weapons on him," she said. "Can you see any of his friends hiding in the woods nearby?" Carly asked. Zoe carefully swept the scope across the woods, near where the man had climbed over the fence. But she couldn't see anyone else there. "It looks like he's alone," she said. "I guess we can talk to him then," Sidney said. "But everyone, get into battle positions and keep your eyes on the boundaries in the woods. If you see even the slightest hint of movement, shoot first and ask questions later." Vernon couldn't deny that icy fear was racing through his veins as he climbed over the fence, and he made sure to wave the white t-shirt as high and as vigorously as he could. For he saw the glint of a rifle scope in the morning sunlight and knew that it had been trained on him. It was a gamble he was taking, and a big one, but he was sure that it would pay off. And when he didn't get shot in the first few seconds of walking onto the homestead grounds, he smiled subtly. His gamble, he was now sure, would pay off. The homestead would be his, one way or another, and its current owners would be dead
within 24 hours.
Chapter 38.
Are you sure you guys can't see this guy's friends hiding out, waiting to ambush us?
Sidney asked, sweeping the sights of his AR-15 across the woods.
I'm not picking up anything where I'm looking.
Nothing from where I'm looking either, son, Carly said.
I can't see anyone,
Harvey said. Jessica's eyes, however, were focused on the man who was approaching them, waving the white t-shirt like a flag above his head. She couldn't see him clearly yet, but his walk was familiar somehow. She thought she recognized him, but from where?
"Don't shoot, folks, don't shoot,"
Vernon yelled as he got closer.
"I'm unarmed, and I come in peace."
He was wearing his best, most polished panhandler's smile, an extremely convincing expression that he had used to con many unsuspecting people out of their money over the years. As soon as Jessica heard his voice, she knew she wasn't imagining things. She definitely did know this man from somewhere, but she still couldn't quite place exactly where. When he got close enough to see clearly, though, she remembered, and a chill ran down her spine.
"I've seen this guy before,"
she whispered to the others. "This scumbag tried to rob me in the city. I don't know how the hell he made it out here, but I do know that his smooth-talking hides an evil soul. Don't trust a word that this lying snake says." "Are you sure it's the same guy?" Carly asked.
"If he tried to lay a finger on you in the city, honey, I'll put a bullet in him right now. I don't care if he is unarmed,"
Sidney growled, taking aim at Vernon.
"Don't shoot him yet," Zoe said. "We'll see what his forked tongue has to say first."
Vernon approached them, beaming out his salesman's smile.
"I come in peace, friends. I come in peace,"
he said, in a pleasant tone of voice, as if he were coming over for milk and cookies.
"I just want to talk to you lovely folks, that's all. Just a good, civilized discussion, that's all I'm asking for."
His eyes met Jessica's, and it was clear he knew exactly who she was. But he said nothing to her, and his smile and cheerful expression remained unwavering.
"What the hell do you want?"
Sidney demanded gruffly.
"I've come to offer you a deal," Vernon said,
stopping on one side of one of the huge dynamite craters, while the defenders gathered on the other side of the crater.
"You have nothing we want," Sidney said flatly. "All I'm going to say to you is that if you and your friends want to live to see another sunrise, you'd best turn around and start walking away from this place. And you better keep walking until you're very, very far away. This is the first and last time we're allowing you to set foot on this property without putting a bullet in you. And that goes for your friends, too. If we see you anywhere near this place ever again, you die. It's as simple as that."
Vernon chuckled softly.
"You're a stubborn one, huh? You haven't even heard what I have to say. I'd urge you not to make hasty judgments. Judgments that will not work out well for you and your people in the long run. We beat you scumbags once and we'll do it again," Zoe growled. "Every time you come back here, we'll kill twice as many of you as we did last time. That's a promise."
Vernon remained unfazed.
"I have to say, I admire your courage," he said.
The smile, however, faded from his face and was replaced by a look of sheer malice.
"But all the courage in the world won't save you from what will happen if you refuse my extremely generous offer. Like I said, asshole, you have nothing we want," Sidney said. "So take whatever offer you were planning on making and shove it up your ass. Take your scumbag friends and leave this place and don't ever come back."
Vernon laughed.
"You act like you actually have the power to make such threats," he said derisively. "You know, however, that you don't. You've got nothing at all to back up your words. You don't have any more explosives. We've got a little ammo, sure, but we've got a lot more guns than you do and more ammo.
And I can see that you're all suffering from the effects of not sleeping while my men are well rested. What I'm here to tell you, though, is that there doesn't need to be any more violence, any more bloodshed. There's a way that we can both come out of this situation advantageously." "Oh, really?" Carly said, clearly skeptical. "And what way is that?" "We share, like civilized people do," Vernon said, putting his charming salesman smile back on. "There's enough food on the homestead for everyone. My men are willing to work in the fields to do what needs to be done to maintain the crops. Weed the fields, harvest, and whatever. Think about it. Surely you can see the potential here. We can all coexist peacefully here. My men could stay in the main cabin, and you people, I'm sure you'd be happy in that smaller cabin. I can promise that none of my men would lay a finger on you. You'd all be completely safe." "There isn't enough food here for you and your men," Carly said coldly. "That's just a hard, cold fact. Also, forgive me if I have a hard time believing that the band of killers, thieves, drug peddlers, and swindlers you're leading would ever lift a finger to do even a minute of honest work. You people would turn right around and make us do all the work while you took all the food. Don't lie and pretend that that's not how things would go. That is, if you didn't simply shoot all of us the moment we allowed you onto this property. And I didn't spend the last 2 decades of my life building up this homestead from nothing to hand it over to a bunch of violent thugs from the city." "I understand your skepticism, but," Vernon began. "You tried to pull the exact same stunt with me 2 weeks ago, you piece of shit," Jessica suddenly snarled, anger blazing across her eyes. "Have you forgotten, or are you just pretending to have forgotten? You smooth-talked me into trusting you, and then you turned around and robbed me and tried to hurt me. Guys, don't believe a single word this evil, lying viper is saying. There's no way those criminals have any intention of letting us live here in peace and coexisting and helping out and all that bullshit. They just want an easy way to take over the homestead. Once they've done that, you can bet they'll turn around and kill us." Vernon smiled coldly. "Don't listen to this hysterical woman. She's clearly, get off our land," Sidney growled, aiming his AR-15 at Vernon's chest. "I'm giving you 5 seconds to turn around and start walking. You stick around here any longer and those are going to be the last 5 seconds of your life. I promise you that. 5, 4, fine. I gave you a chance. Have it your way," Vernon said coolly. He turned around and started walking away. "You'll regret this," he called out over his shoulder as he left. "You're all going to regret this. I promise you that." They all watched him go in silence, until finally he climbed back over the fence and disappeared into the woods. "What do we do now?" Harvey finally asked, breaking the silence. "Get ready to fight," Carly said grimly. "The attack will come soon." "You don't think they'll wait until dark?" Zoe asked. "Carly's right," Jessica said. "That evil snake is as cunning as anything. He's smart, I'll give him that. He didn't just come here to offer us some bullshit deal. He came to assess our strength. He's just seen that we're all exhausted, that we're falling asleep on our feet. Despite the fact that his men are cowards at heart, I think they'll attack in daylight. They think we're expecting them to come at night, and they also now know that we're at our weakest. I think the attack is going to come soon, very soon. He's going to strike fast and hard." Before anyone else could say anything, a shot rang out from the woods, and a puff of dirt erupted from the ground, a few feet from Carly. Then, from the other side of the woods, came the hammering of an assault rifle, and bullets began to riddle the porch. "Everyone inside, hurry!" Carly yelled. The attack was starting, far sooner than they could have anticipated. Now there was no time to plan, no time to get into the battle positions they had used so successfully in the previous encounter. As everyone raced into the cabin, fleeing from the rapidly intensifying shooting, Sidney fired a few bursts of AR-15 fire in the direction the assault rifle fire was coming from. He couldn't see the man he was shooting at, but firing in his adversary's direction gave his family members enough cover for them to get in before the man could resume firing on them. Just as they got into the cabin, all hell broke loose. Fire started pouring out of the woods from all directions, with hundreds of bullets hammering the cabin. The rate of fire was so intense that none of the defenders could even think of returning fire. All they could do was keep their heads down and race down into the cellar as bullets blasted through every window. The stone walls were impervious to bullets, of course, but some of Vernon's men had climbed high up into the trees on the homestead's boundary, and they were pouring down bullets into the house through the roof. Inside the house, bullets were crashing through the roof and shattering the windows, ripping up furniture, shattering cutlery, destroying jars and tinned food, puncturing water storage containers and ripping up books. Sidney deadbolted the door to the cellar, which was bulletproof, and the family sat in the darkness of the small space, listening to the rain of bullets destroying their home and their possessions above. The tables had turned completely compared to the first battle. Now the attackers had the upper hand and were absolutely dominating the fight.
What do we do?
Jessica gasped. She was holding Valerie tight, and the girl was sobbing plaintively, holding her hands over her ears to try to block the thunderous barrage of shooting.
They can't get us while we're in here, Carly said. The door's bulletproof and the floor's reinforced, too. They can't shoot through it. Forgive me if that doesn't give me much comfort, Harvey said. The way I see it, they've got us trapped in here. Trapped like rats.
We've got a lot of food down here and a few barrels of water, Sidney began, trying to sound hopeful.
So what? We're gonna just wait in here while they walk around on top of us, figuring out ways to kill us?
Harvey asked gloomily.
I mean, hell, they could set fire to the house on top of us or pour gasoline or something down into the cellar or...
Harvey, stop, Sidney said firmly. We don't need that kind of talk right now.
I'm ready to make my last stand here, Zoe said, raising her AR-15 to her shoulder and taking aim at the door. I was hoping I'd have a few more years before going gently into that good night, as the saying goes, but screw it, I'm ready to go out. I say when they get in here, we wait until we hear them right above us, then we suddenly fling open the door and just pour every bullet we've got into them. I think we can take out a whole bunch of the scumbags before, well, you know.
No, Jessica said, tears welling up in her eyes, her voice cracking.
I'm not letting my little girl, I can't let her, I can't.
Sidney walked over to Jessica and Valerie and hugged them both. We're going to be okay. We're all going to be okay, he said, choking on the words, his own eyes burning with tears. God's going to protect us. We just have to have faith.
Screw this, Harvey said, using his good arm to aim his pistol at the cellar door. I'm with Zoe. I can't take this anymore. I can't sit here waiting for those monsters to figure out ways to kill us all slowly in here. Let's throw that door open and go out in a blaze of glory.
Outside, Vernon was watching his plan play out with a broader grin on his face than he had had in a long time. He had suspected the family would refuse his offer, and that was why he had had his men ready and in place, set to launch an all-out attack the moment he gave the signal. Getting the family to come out and talk had prevented them from getting to their battle positions and had left them vulnerable. And now, everything was playing out exactly as he had hoped it would. It was time to move to the next phase of the plan. He took out his flare gun and shot a flare at the house. The bright flare streaking over the building was the signal for his men to stop firing.
Cease fire!
He yelled from his position behind a large tree on the boundary of the property. As the firing died down,
there's so much lead in that house now, it's going to start sinking into the earth. They're probably all dead by now. Move in! Everyone, move in!
The men stopped firing, and the earth-shaking thunder of their barrage died down. A raucous cheer boomed across the homestead as the attackers celebrated their imminent victory. They began to pour out of the woods, clambering over the fence and racing across the homestead toward the main cabin. But as they were running toward the cabin, a new thunder filled the air. And that sound was not the sound of gunfire, like the previous aural storm. It was loud and potent, but in a different manner. It was more of a rhythmic pulsing and droning. The men stopped running and looked up at the sky, which was thick with clouds, for that was where the sound was coming from. They recognized the sound, but how could it be possible that they were hearing that sound here and now? "What the hell?" Vernon murmured. He too recognized the sound, and he couldn't believe he was hearing it. Then they saw it. A Black Hawk, which came bursting out of the clouds. The attack chopper swooped down low, and suddenly its minigun opened fire, a hail of bullets tearing across the homestead's fields, scything through the ranks of stunned attackers, who were now caught right out in the open, and were sitting ducks for the Black Hawk gunner.
"This can't be happening,"
Vernon gasped, stunned.
"This can't be possible! This can't be happening!"
A few of the attackers raised their firearms and tried to shoot at the Black Hawk as it swept low over the homestead, spraying minigun fire in a deadly rain. But most simply turned and fled, and were cut down as they sprinted away in terror. Inside the cellar, the defenders were just as confused.
"What the hell is that?"
Sidney yelled.
"It sounds like a helicopter and a big one,"
Carly yelled over the noise.
"It's Alaric. It's gotta be. But how?" "Shoot it down!"
Vernon screamed, as his remaining men fled in chaos.
"Shoot it down! Shoot it down!"
The Blackhawks circled the homestead, sweeping in an arc through the air, and the minigun kept its ferocious fire, decimating the horde of attackers. And in the pilot's seat of the chopper, Alaric smiled grimly.
"Cut those bastards down, Spike,"
he muttered to Spike, who was propped up in the gunner's seat, operating the minigun.
"Cut every last one of them down. If they've hurt my family, I'm giving them hell, Alaric. I'm giving them hell,"
Spike wheezed. The thrill of combat had injected fresh energy and life into his weary, emaciated body. Alaric circled the homestead one more time, giving Spike the chance to cut down the remaining fleeing attackers. And then he landed the chopper in one of the fields near the cabin, grabbed his AR-15, and jumped out to personally deal with the last few attackers. The battle, and the war against Vernon, was won. Epilogue.
"It's okay. I'm not sad about it much, really,"
Harvey said, mopping his sweaty brow with a handkerchief.
"I mean, sure, I miss having full use of my left arm, but I've been doing okay with one for a few months now, and you can see it hasn't stopped me from helping out with the harvest."
"I'm just saying I'd miss my left arm a lot if I lost the use of it," Alaric said, pausing from his digging under the hot sun. "But you're right. You're doing pretty well with just one good arm. You certainly have earned your keep around here." Both men chuckled. Then, however, Alaric's eyes drifted over to a simple gravestone at the edge of the field, beneath a young tree. That was where they had buried Spike. He had died peacefully in his sleep, 2 weeks after helping Alaric to win the battle.
"You know,"
Harvey said, breaking the somber silence,
"although I've always been a city boy, life out here isn't too bad. I honestly thought it would be a lot harder to adjust than it has been. And I still don't think I'll ever be able to repay you for taking me in like this," he continued. "If you hadn't done that, Alaric, I'd have starved to death a long time ago." I wouldn't have let that happen. Not to a good man like you, Harvey. We may not have seen eye to eye on most things when we first met, but... There's a stranger coming! Jessica yelled from a few dozen yards away, where she was harvesting beans. Someone's just climbed over the fence! Shit, Alaric muttered, setting down his shovel and grabbing his AR-15, which was never more than a few feet away from him. Everyone else grabbed their guns, too, as they observed the figure approaching. It was a man they saw, a terribly emaciated man who was walking with a staggering lurch, barely able to put one foot in front of the other. It took him a long time to get across the field to where the family was gathered, with every step seeming to require a marathon effort. Finally, he got close enough for them to get a good look at. He was clothed in filthy, tattered fabric that amounted to little more than torn rags, and his hair was long and matted. His cheeks were sunken and hollow, his eyes bloodshot, his lips cracked and bleeding. And as different as he looked now, compared to a few months prior, they all recognized him. It was Jessica who spoke his name first. "Vernon," she hissed. "Friends," Vernon croaked, forcing a weak, pathetic smile onto his skeletal face. I came here to beg for forgiveness for my past mistakes. Turn around and get the hell out of here, you snake, Alaric growled, aiming his AR-15 at Vernon's chest. You tried to murder my family and take my land. You're lucky I haven't put a bullet in you already. Please, Vernon begged, sinking to his knees and wringing his hands together. I just need a little food. I haven't eaten for weeks. And I said, get out of here before I blow your brains all over those pumpkin vines, Alaric said. I mean it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Vernon wailed. I'll be your servant. No, I'll be your slave even if you'll just... A shot rang out, and Vernon's head snapped back in a spray of blood. His body flopped forward onto the ground, and he lay there, dead. Everyone turned around with looks of surprise on their faces. It hadn't been Alaric who had fired the shot. Harvey stood there with his pistol in his right hand, a thin wisp of smoke rising from the barrel. His eyes were as hard as polished stone as he stared at the corpse of the man he had just shot. Part of me is still a pacifist, he said, looking up at the family as he slid his pistol back into its holster on his hip. But in this new world we're living in, I'm also a pragmatist. No good could have come of letting that poisonous, lying viper live. I'll bury him myself. Alaric nodded slowly. I'm not going to say that you did the right thing, Harvey, he said. But I'm not going to say you did the wrong thing either. If anyone had a good dose of justice coming his way, it was that evil son of a bitch. Everyone murmured their agreement with that sentiment. I'll help you get the body out of here, Sidney said to Harvey. I'll go get a horse and a cart. We can take him to the woods and bury him there. I don't want his evil polluting this soil, even when he's dead. I'm glad Valerie is out playing by the creek with her grandma, Jessica said. And she didn't have to witness this. All right, people, Alaric said, mopping his sweaty brow. Now that the last threat to our lives has finally been dealt with, thanks to Harvey here, we can get back to work. You know how the saying goes, make hay while the sun shines. So let's do just that. They got back to work, and Sidney went off to get a horse and cart to dispose of Vernon's corpse. Above them, the afternoon sun shone brightly in the deep blue sky, and there wasn't a single cloud
to be seen. The end.